Once you understand the financial system, you'll understand why we had COVID-19, why we had cholera, why we have war, why we have load shedding, why we have traffic lights not working, and all of these things. Once you understand the financial system, you'll understand why we have all these problems. So the name of the game is money printing or bailout. So let me explain this system to you. It starts with the government. So there are four key players in the system. Key player number one is the government. Number two is the Reserve Bank or the central bank. Almost every country have their own reserve bank. In South Africa, we have South African Reserve Bank. In USA, they have the Federal Reserve Bank. So that's key player number two. Key player number three is local banks or commercial banks. Our FNB, ABSA, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Bank of China, Capitec, Time Bank, Discovery, African Bank, those guys, those are the commercial banks, right? And then you also have the fourth key player, which is businesses or slaves. Businesses slash slaves. So what do these guys do in the financial system? The first function of the Reserve Bank in this picture, or let's start with the government. That's the key player number one. So the function of the government in this picture is to identify a problem. A problem can be COVID, it can be load shedding, it can be war. That problem needs money. What do I mean it needs money? Well, for the government to fix the problem, they need money, right? When we have COVID, the government needs 500 billion rand that they borrowed so that they can give people 350s, or so that they can hire more soldiers to patrol in the street to make sure that when it's lockdown, nobody leaves their house, right? Or when it's war, we need more soldiers. That's why they employed more soldiers in what is this place in Limpopo? I forgot the name of the place, but you know it. Venda. So they recruited more soldiers from Venda, and then even USA they busy recruiting more soldiers. That's it. That is money. The fuel cost of running the trucks of engaging in war, it's money. It needs money. When we have load shedding, whatever the problem of load shedding to be fixed, for the problem to be fixed, the government needs money. So that's a problem of the government. The government needs to find money to fund that problem so that the problem can be solved, so that us as the country citizens we can be happy. Because when the problem is here, we look at the government and say, the government, please fix the problem. This problem, we have photos here, we have traffic lights are not working, we have load shedding, we have water shedding, please fix the problem for us. What the government will do, the government will simply say, no problem, I will fix the problem, I will fix this issue, but I need money, so I will go and get money from somewhere, because I don't have money. The government doesn't have money. It's just like you and I, they don't have money. If a problem arises like this, they'll have to go out and borrow money. So there's so many different places which the government can go and borrow money. Also, you can give your money to the government and they will pay you interest for giving them your money by buying treasury bonds. So, in this case, I'm going to use the Reserve Bank as an example, because the Reserve Bank is the only entity on earth that is always available to give the government money when the government is in need. So, here's the thing. Let's say the government needs 500 billion to give people the 350s to solve the issue of COVID. That's a problem, right? Once the government realize that they need 500 billion, they're going to go to the Reserve Bank and ask for the 500 billion rand. So the question is, will the Reserve Bank give the government the 500 billion? Yes. The Reserve Bank will give the government the 500 billion that the government wants, and then the government will come and take that money and give it to us in the economy. But for them to give us that money, the process of giving us that money, it needs to be facilitated through banks. We can't just go to the treasury office as country citizens and ask for the 350. We need to go and queue at the bank to ask for the 350. So this is where the banks come into picture. So banks, what they will do, they will take that money and give it to us country citizens, us the slaves. And you are about to find out what I mean when I say you are a slave. We are the slaves. So For them to give it to us, okay, we're going to get the F50s from the banks. And then what about businesses that they need to pay workers, they need to pay suppliers, because now they're no longer functioning. They need loan, right? So that the economy can run. So this is where a system called quantitative easing comes into play. What is quantitative easing? Quantitative easing is a fancy word for money transfer, wealth transfer. It happens over and over and over again. What does it mean? It simply means that the banks, they cut interest rates. It starts with the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank will cut repo rates, and the local banks will cut prime rates, so that that money can be cheap to businesses to borrow. This is why during COVID the interest rates were very, 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 very low, and that is exactly why we had COVID. The interest rates, when the interest rates are low, more money is printed, because more businesses will go and borrow money. And when they borrow money because it's cheap. The interest rates are so low, right? During COVID, the interest rates were low in every corner of the world. Check it out on history. And then once the interest rates are low, that's quantitative easing. They cut the interest rates and increase money supply, meaning they print more money. They make money to be cheap and they print more money. It causes inflation. This is why after every crisis, things become expensive. How much was the price of cooking oil after COVID? How much was the price of potatoes after COVID? How much was the price of eggs after COVID? And other things that I don't even know about. You know about them better than I do. Those things were expensive because of inflation. Inflation is caused by money printing. The more the government and the Reserve Bank print money, is the more inflation increases. And this is why things will forever continue to increase, because the government's debt is increasing. The national debt is increasing. When the national debt increase, it means they're printing more money. But the question is, where did that 500 billion come from? Remember, the government want to take it from who? The Reserve Bank, which is the central bank, right? I'm not saying the 500 billion exactly. I'm just giving an example of 500 billion. The 500 billion that they used during COVID, they didn't borrow it specifically from the Reserve Bank. They borrowed it from multiple places. That was not the only money that they borrowed during COVID. I'm just giving this example. Like I mentioned, the Reserve Bank is not the only place where the government can borrow money. They can borrow money from the IMF, from banks, or from private companies, or from even you and I, or from foreign countries. It's possible. So the question is, where did the Reserve Bank get that 500 billion from? Well, they call themselves the Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, South African Reserve Bank. Do they have reserves sitting somewhere because they call themselves reserves? Well, the answer is no. Yes. So the Reserve Bank doesn't have any reserves sitting somewhere. Money is created the moment the government goes to the Reserve Bank and asks for money. When the government gives the Reserve Bank a bond, which is IOU, I will create a video explaining a bond. If you don't understand bonds, you don't understand money. So money is created the moment the government goes to the Reserve Bank and ask for that money. So what happens is that the government takes a bond, creates a bond, and go and give it to the Reserve Bank. And then the Reserve Bank guy will be sitting on their computer, there on their computer screen, 500 billion, boom, left the bank, the Reserve Bank's account, and it went to the government's account. That money doesn't come from anywhere. That money is printed out of thin air. It didn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's just they printed it out of thin air there on the computer. 500 billion left the government's account, and it left the Reserve Bank's account, and it went to the treasury. That's how the system works. But because that money was a loan, it will need to be repaid back. So the question is, who's going to pay back that money? And this is where taxes come into play. This is why they will introduce taxes now. So they need that money back through taxes. So, well, we don't have the problem with the government borrowing money, but when they charge us taxes in order for them to return that money back, they use us. They go and borrow money to fund COVID, and then they sometimes they do fund COVID, but some of it they will put it under the mattress, they will build our own guns. As politicians, it's the same in every country. And by the way, this is not something that you can stop. This system was implemented a long time ago before you were even born. So this is not something that we are going to put our Ramaphosa on the blame. We're not going to put the blame on our president Cyril Ramaphosa. We're not going to put the blame on our politicians, right? This is the system that was implemented a long time ago, and we can't complain. So here's the thing: once that money is borrowed, it needs to be repaid back. And by the way, remember, they take that money and they fund COVID problem, and another one they steal it. But who is going to pay back that money? Us taxpayers. So this is why they are going to come up with ways to introduce different types of taxes, just so that they can recover the debt, they can pay off the loan, right? So the problem is that they never ask us taxpayers when they go and borrow that money. They just go and borrow the money, right? They never ask any taxpayer. They don't inform us. They don't have a limit to how many times can they go and print more money. So this is where the problem is. They make us pay taxes without asking us for our permission. So now the question is, if these guys, they always want a problem to print money, they need a problem so that money can be printed. They need COVID so that they can bail out people, right? This is where it becomes dangerous. These guys will now create a problem if there's no problem, just so that they can print more money, just so that the interest rates can be low. Well, why do we have a war in Iran? Why did we have a war in Ukraine? Why are these things happening? Why do we have load shedding? Why do we have photos? Why do we have traffic lights not working? Why do we have all these problems? If there's no problem, the problem will be created. They will create a problem. So when you protest, when you see people protest on the street, when you see people striking there, destroying the infrastructure, saying, hey, we want this, we want that, just know that that strike alone is a problem that is significant for the government to go and use it as an excuse to borrow money from the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank print money out of thin air. If there's no problem, they will create a problem at an expense of people's lives. I hope this makes sense. So for them to take that money through taxes, they'll have to introduce fancy ways of taking money out of your pocket. They will say they will introduce VAT, they will introduce inflation, they will introduce capital gains tax, they will introduce estate duty tax, they will introduce so many different types of taxes just so that they can recover that money. All these taxes are going to the same person, to the same account. Does it make sense? This is me. I want your money. I'm saying to you that, hey, you know what? Give me your money with my left hand. We call it left hand tax. Give me your money with your right hand. We call it right hand tax. Give me your money with your mouth. We call it mouth tax. And every month you must give me this money, or every year you must give me this money. Otherwise, we're gonna have problems. Otherwise, I'm gonna arrest you. I created jail so that I can arrest you if you don't comply, and you must comply to me. This is why it's called compliance. This is why you always need to comply. And I'm not saying don't comply. You must comply. Have yourself accountants, have yourself good tax specialists, so that you can find ways to not pay taxes. Or alternatively, you can start investing so that you pay less taxes or minimum taxes as much as possible. And at Salmax, salmax.co.za, we teach you to learn how to invest. We teach you this financial system. We mentor you so that you can navigate through this financial system and not be a slave of the system, because the slaves are those who pay taxes, because taxes are here because of that loan, of that money that was printed out of thin air. They create a problem, they create money out of thin air. That money, for that money to be repaid back, you're the taxpayer, you must pay it. I hope you learned something, and if you learned something, please subscribe, and don't forget to like this video and share it. Thank you very much, and comment what you have learned, and comment what you would like me to clarify on. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.